Hi everyone, welcome to Dart and Flutter series. So in this video, let's learn about the iterable classes, that is map and the list. So let's begin with the first one, that is called list. If you're familiar with other programs like JavaScript or Java or C, list is also called as array. So what is array? If you are completely beginner, array is nothing but, so if you could remember the variable, see, we used to store a single values, right, in a variable. If you want to store a multiple values, we usually go for the arrays. So it's a simple concept that you are storing a multiple elements. Okay, and list is the one of the one of the useful object in the Dart, and it also very important that it inherited its behavior. So the whole list concept, the behavior of the list, what you see, you can loop through it, you can store many element of your behavior. It's been inherited from the fundamental class called the iterable. From this fundamental class, few things have been iterated. It's been taken off or inherited. So few of them are list and the maps. So let's begin with the how to write the syntax for the list. Okay, how to write the syntax for the list. So as I told, list is a kind of element that stores a n number of it basically stores a n number of elements, right? So the syntax of the list starts with the keyword called list, which is being followed by the generic type. So what do you mean by generic type? See, I'll come to this point later. Just write the back bracket, or else you can remove the bracket. Later we'll come to this point. So it begins with the keyword called list, which is followed by the name. You have to give a name to the list that you are storing. Example, imagine you have learned about variables, right? When you create a variable, you usually give a name for the identifying that variable. Same way, to identify the list, you give some name, that's all. And which is followed by assignment operator. So you are, let's say you are trying to store a you're trying to store a names of your friends like Sarah or Abhi or Alex. So you're trying to store the friends of your friends in the list. Okay, you're storing the names of your friends in the list. So this is simple. So instead of keeping number, let's keep it as names. Okay, let's be specific about what we are storing. So if I try to run print and names will just try to write names, and if I try to run this code, the output expected is an array with these all names inside it. As expected, we got the output. The next thing is to make sure this the content that we are storing, the data we are storing, is quite safety, because sometimes you have to perform some addition or filtering the array. You're doing some kind of manipulation to the array. In that case, if you try to add a number, it could take the number. So to maintain the safety of this, we can just add a generic type. So what this generic type, whenever you write the generic type, which will be inside this angular bracket, so what it takes is, you're just making or telling the Dart that whatever the data I'm storing, that data should be only string. The moment you give string, so what you are telling to Dart is whatever the data I am storing, that should be string. If I try to add one more element, that is 5, which is a number, which throws an error, because this element, the whole list, only can take the string. So you got the point of why we use this generic type. So if you run the same, output will be shown. Yeah. So I'll repeat once again for the quiet revision. So whenever you want to create a list where you are storing n number of elements or n number of data, what you'll do, you'll start with the list keyword followed by a type of it and a name to it, which is assigned to the data that you are telling or you are storing. the next thing is, and this also called as literal list. Okay, this is also called as literal list. So let's say if you want to access some elements, let's say if I want Abhi, the name of the user Abhi from this list. If I want to print Abhi from this list, is what I can do. How can I access? Is very important. How can I access the element from the list? From the list. See, one of the major thing about list is, here the each index, each element will have the index value, the identifying value, and it starts with 0. If this element starts with 0, this element index will be 1 and this element index will be 2. Okay, and each element will be separated by comma. Okay, so if I want to get an Abhi, what will be the index number? If index number of 0 starts with, the index number starts with 0, it is Sarah is 0, the Abhi will be 1. So what I'll do, I'll just write print statement. So whatever I write could be printed on the console. What I want, Abhi, which is an index of names. So whenever I want to access a list, what I can do, I can use the index value. If I write names of 1, and if I try to run the program, the output that we get is an Abhi. Okay, let's say if you want to access the more than one element, in that case, if you want to access the more than two elements, in that situation we can just write names. We have the method called sublist. Inside the sublist, it takes the two things. Okay, the index of the element that you want, from where you want. Okay, basically let's say if you want from Sarah to Alex, or only if you want Sarah and Abhi, you'll write, okay, I want an element which starts with the index of 0 and I want to end it at the element 0 and 1. I want this also, right? I want to end it in the index of 2. And if I try to print the whole thing, just copy this, do Control X and write print and paste it, and make sure you end the statement with a semicolon. And if you try to run the code, the output we receive is, the first it will print this name, then the names of one, that will be Abhi, and the second, what we have printed is, we told the sublist, or we want two elements, that is Sarah and Abhi. So what did we do? We gave a starting index from Sarah to whatever there inside the Alex. No, we want everything. So it has printed Sarah and Abhi. I think you're clear about how do you access the element. Okay, there's also another way to create a list. Okay, if this is also another way to create list, and if you want that list to have the same n number, same element to be stored without using a literal syntax, there's another way. Example how do I write, or how do I create this another list is, I can just write, let's create a variable that stores that list. Let's write a list which will have, or let's write a greet as a name, which will take a list. List is a keyword, dot is filled, not is filled, it's just a field, and you want to fill how many times. And right, if you are creating an list, how many times you want to how many elements you want. Let's say if you want 10 elements, and what you want to repeat, or what you want that element to be. Let's say if you want your element to be hello, the spelling is wrong, let's correct it and end this statement with a semicolon and try to run the program. So what is this statement is saying? Okay, we forgot to print this statement, so of course the output won't be printed. So make sure, let's print this, and we'll try to run this. Okay, see, as the expected, the output is being printed, and it is printed for the 10 time and the same element. So what we did here is we created a list. It's a list, right? Do you guys agree it's a list? Yes, of course, it's a list. It is filled with, you are filling an element and it is repeating for 10 times the same element called hello. So this is another way you can create a list. The next thing is, let's create a default list. Okay, we have an list called list which contain an even number, and which is we're just storing an even numbers. Let's say if you want to add a new element to the list, if that was your concern, how can we add a new element? I can just write even numbers dot. So there's a few methods that we can perform on the list. Okay, the few methods, like you can add, you can remove, you can get elements, or you can see how many length were there. Among them, if you want to add a new element, I can just write a method called add, and what you want to add. Let's say if you want to add a 10, and if I try to print an array, the print a list that is an even numbers now, even numbers. So if I try to run the code, so what basically we did, we added this 10 element, the element 10 to this array. So we are trying to print that. So we got an output which contained 2, 4, 6, 8, which is the original array, and the added element called 10. So I think you got the clarity. So in the moment when you write add, it just adds to the end of the array. Let's say if I want to add an element in between or at the beginning, in that condition what I can do is I can use another method called insert. So even numbers dot insert, so which takes two things. This insert method, it takes two elements. One is where you want to add. I want to add at the beginning of the array, beginning of the list, which is nothing but an index of 0. And what you want to add? You want to add an element 0. And let's end this statement and try to run this. So when I run this, and second thing, let's print the even numbers, because we want to see the changes that we made. Just run the code again. This is the previous one. So I'll come by step. We have the list which is storing an elements even numbers. Okay, it is storing a even numbers. Next, you are trying to add a new element to the list. Okay, so the moment when you write add, the element 10 will be added to the end of the list. So the next thing is, I want to add at the beginning. In that situation, I can use a keyword called or a method called insert, where I am adding at the beginning of the array. And what I am adding? I am adding element 10. Let's say if I want to add at the fifth element, the fifth index. The moment when I write fifth index, this element 0 will be added at the fifth index. See here, that is the last index. Okay. Okay, we have already seen how to add. There's other few methods that you have to know. Just go through it by going through all searches and all. Learn more methods. Then the second one, or when you add element, you also have to know how to remove elements, right? How do I remove the elements? We can just do even numbers and a method called remove last. The moment when I write a remove last, so automatically which is the element which will be at the last, that will be removed. I'll just print it and show you. And if I try to run this, the first two arrays will be printed. Later on, the remove element will be printed. See, the 0 will be the remove. If you could observe all three, the array, the list you have created is being manipulated. It's been changing. The initial list is 2, 4, 6, 8, right? But at the end of the list, you can see the whole data is being changed, right? It's been manipulated. It's a mutable element. So, and I also told there's n number of methods that you can perform on the list, right? Let's say if you want to know how many elements or how many data or the you are storing, or how many elements you are storing. In order to know that how many size or uh, the length, if you want to know, or how many elements were there, we can just write even numbers dot length. The moment when I write this and try to print this, I'll get an integer that is having the how many elements were stored in this list. How many elements are there? There are 4. So the what will be the expected output? It will be okay. Let's move to the next thing. Let's say if you want to get if you want to get a last element, you already know how to get an how many elements, right? So let's say if you want to know or you want to get the last element, you can also get the last element by using a method called last, or you can get an first element. So these are the things or the methods, if these are the methods that can be performed on the list, and we can get anything we wanted. Like example, here the length is 4 and the last element is 8 as expected, and the first element is 2. You got the output. So this is all overall concept, the properties, the methods that we can work on the list. Okay, now let's talk about loops. We already discussed about loops in our previous video. We are just going through the each element, and if you already in the background of C, you would have already know few looping statements like for, do, while loops, right? Same way we do have some can perform a loops on the list. So what we can do is, I can just take the list element, I can go through the each element and perform whatever the things that I wanted. Let's imagine I can just make this or multiply with 2 and return an array. So I can perform a for loop to it. So one of the common is for loop. For loop. Why we want a loop? As I told, these elements are being stored in the multiple. It's not a single element, the multiple elements stored in the array. So we want an if you want an each element and you want to manipulate each element, we kind of go for the loops. Okay, so to create for loop, just write a keyword for followed by parenthesis and the curly braces. Inside this curly braces, a block of code will be performed if the condition inside this parenthesis is true. Okay, so what we want, we'll just write int I. We are initializing a variable int I or n in the list called even numbers. So I'll just print it here. So what we are doing inside this list even number, we are just going through the each element, and what we want, we just want to print the each element. So for now, let's print the each element, or let's do multiply. Let's multiply each element by 2 and let's print it, and the output is the same thing. See, the array, each element of 2 will be multiplied by the 2. That is 2 2s are 4. Same way it will be multiplied by the 2. So what did we do? We took the whole elements from this list which is stored, and we just changed into the element that we wanted. We have manipulated data. We can able to access the each element, and we can able to change it using a loops. And there's a two main fundamental options for looping this. That is most common is for each and map. These are the most used common the looping methods. We always tend to use for each or map more than the for loops. Okay, so what we can do, whatever the list that we have created, right, upon that we can perform an looping function like a method. Okay, I'll write even numbers dot for each, and inside that it takes a callback function. What do you mean by a callback function? I already talked about function in the last videos. If the function, it is taking a another function as a parameter. If your parameter that you are passing, the argument that you are passing is a function, then it's nothing but an callback function. So here inside the callback function, each element will get an ln, that is nothing but an each element. See, even number will have this elements, right? So each element will be passed into this function, and what we want to do, we just want to print n. And if I try to run this program, so what will be the output? The output will be even number, which will be printed here. So in the first case, until here we have just multiplied. Let's do one thing. We'll write for loop, and we'll use a string interpolation. We'll use a dollar sign, and we tend to do this. If there's one more condition you have to see. It is more than one expression. I mean, the variable that you are passing is little complex. I mean, it has a multiplication with some numbers. In that condition, just use curly braces and you try to print it. Okay, and let's do it for this also. Let's write for each, and we'll just use dollar sign and n. If I try to run, the each element will be separated, and you'll know which element is printed for which. Okay, see, until here the for loop is done. Here you are just printing the for each. The both does the same thing. Okay, there's no confusion, both is looping. But see the syntax. Okay, it is little easy, and it can be used in between an UI if you want an alternative, or the based on how UI you want to display, conditional UI. And the most used loops that we in the Dart are map. Map is also like a method that you can perform on the list. Even number is nothing but a list, right? So upon this you can write map, and it also takes a callback function called callback function, and each will have the element, and we can just write n, or we can just we can write n. And second thing, you can't write print n. And if I try to run this program, and what we expected from the other both, just to print a number, right? But here in this case, it doesn't return the element like this too. Here the elements are it's been printed as a single value, right? But in the case of map, it gives you in the group, it gives you in the parenthesis. So in order to print that, what we can do, we will just store the, see, until that I remove the program has not been run, because it doesn't return the element like that. So let's store this in the the variable, and let's try to print that variable and see. Okay, the variable name is num, and try to end the statement and try to run the program. In this case, what will happen? So what is the num? It's a even number dot map, and see here, I told you, the output from here and these two loops are totally different. The output that we get here, this is an iterable. I told you the list has some behavior from the iterable, right? The iterable can be printed as each element. So when you do map, you'll get an element in the group usually. So let's say if you want to convert that into the array, if you want that to be in the array, we can just perform a method called toList. See, the moment when I write toList and the parenthesis, that is the method that we have on the output that we got, that is in the parenthesis. So when I write toList, it will be converted back to the array. Okay, in this when you want to just write multiply, and if you want to write whatever the data that you have manipulated, right, you want to return that in the list, you can just use a method toList. I think you got the overall clarity about how do we loop through the each element, how to get an element, how to manipulate the each element. So for loops are mainly used in the real cases, like let's imagine you have the data where you have list of users, and you have to perform certain actions, like you want to filter some kind of data, or you want to just print the all data. What the data that you see, like if you take e-commerce website or the any other website, the usually data will be stored in either objects or the array. When they want, they'll try to loop like this, and they try to print the UI according to that data. Okay, when I get started with the Flutter, we will use all these basic things. So in that time, all these things make sense. Okay, now we have two lists. One is an even number and second one is names. Let's say if I want an array or the list which should have both this number and the names. So I'll give the problem statement again. I want a list which should have both numbers, I mean whatever the numbers that we have stored here, this, and the all the names that we are stored in the second. How can we get a list from this? So basically you are trying to combine both the list. How can I do? In that case we will use a spread system. How do I, it's like concatenating or merging two elements. So let's create a element or a var element called a merge the list or something. And what we are trying to do, we are creating the list which should have both the elements of even numbers and names, right? In that case we'll use a spread operators. This three dots what you see, it's called as spread system. So you are just going through the each element and you are just taking, I mean each list, and you are taking all the elements. What we want a even numbers, and also we want a element from the names. So just copy and paste this and in the statement and try to print this variable. It is merge list. The spelling is wrong, let's correct and end this statement and try to run this program. See, as expected we got an array which is trying to merge the both elements of even numbers and the names. See, we got an output like this. So it is basically combining two lists. And one more cool feature about the this literal syntax is, let's create a variable called depressed, or let it be like is done. Let's make this as false by default. Okay, I think you're clear about this. We have created a variable is done. If you have not saw the video of the variable, just go through the playlist, you'll get the variable concept and learn from there. So let's continue with the tutorial. So it's a type of the data type of the variable that you are storing. So we are storing an boolean. So the variable is called is done. So let's create another one list called cart, which will have the list of the product that you have shopped. So let's example pen or book, and let's say I want to add one more thing based on if this done or if this added. Let's change this name to added. So let's I was talking about the cool stuff, right? Cool stuff is nothing but you can also include a condition statement inside this list. How? I'll show you. See, let's say if is added, if this element added, if it is true, if it becomes true, what I have to do, I just want to add an element called juice, and I'll just end the statement. I'll try to run the program, and I have to make sure you will print a list called cart, and we'll run the program. So what we are doing, see, you guys already know what is cart. It's a list. Okay, that list has two things. One is a pen and a book. This is the element that you're getting. It's like a product. Okay, the third element depends upon the condition. If this condition is true, this element will be added. Let's make this true and see if that actually works. So if I run this program, the output should be pen, book and juice. See? So I was talking about the cool things about literal syntaxes, nothing but this only. So what it does is, based on condition also, it can print the element or store the elements to the list. Okay, let's go to the second concept, that is map. Map is also one of the iterable, and what do you mean by iterable? It's nothing but few behaviors and all. This map has been inherited from the iterables, and if you're familiar with Pythons or any other language, it's also called as dictionary and objects in other languages. Okay, and maps are nothing but, if you could explain it properly, is maps are nothing but it's like a key and value pair, which where the key will all be unique and each key will point to some kind of values. Okay, let's see how can we define the map, how can we write the syntax for map. As I told, both map and the list is basically for storing the n number of elements. Okay, you're storing the elements, could be some specific data only, but you're storing n number of elements inside it. Okay, how do we write or create a map? It starts with a keyword map. As list, if you could see, it also started with the keyword. Same way here also you start with the keyword map, followed by generic type, that is angular bracket. Inside angular bracket, here it takes two things. As I told, it's a key and value pair, right? Key will also have a type and value will also have a type. So that's why the generic type will have it two things. Before writing this generic type, let's start with the basic. Let's write map, and we'll give a name to the map, that is nothing but an object or a dictionary in other language, which is assigned to the values. So whenever you write a map, it always encloses within the curly braces. Okay, and make sure you end the statement. Inside the curly braces or the block of code or the map, I told it's a key and value pair, right? So here what we can write, we can just write a title, which is a key, and it will have the value to it. Like example, Stranger Things. See, each element, the map will have a key and a value to it. Okay, I think you're clear about it. And second thing is, I was talking about this generic type, right? And this will be mostly used to just to protect the type of the map. If in order it doesn't destroy, or to not make much further the problem, we usually use the generic type, okay, to maintain the type safety. So it takes two things. Since there's a key and value, it takes the two things. The first key is the title. What is the title? It is string, right? And the second, always the key will be string, and second thing, it could be anything. If you want to store a string, you can store. If you want to store a number, let's say let's have another key that is called seasons. How many seasons of Stranger Things will be in there? Right now it is releasing 5. Soon it will be, which is a number, right? In the first it is storing a string, and in the second object and key it is a number. If you want to make that as number, we can just make it as dynamic. Okay, the moment you write dynamic, which means that the value can be dynamically anything. It can be if you're not familiar with the variable of dynamic, you can go and check the playlist. So variable can be anything. It can be reassignable or rechangeable. Okay, if I just stick it if I just strictly tell it to be string, then there will be an error. See, because we are passing or giving a value that is a number. That's why we tend to keep that as dynamic, so any element of the value can be given to it. Okay, I think you're clear about the map. Map is nothing but we are basically storing a n number of elements, which will be usually in the key and value pair, and each time, if you could observe, the key will be unique and it will be assigned to some kind of value. And how do you write the or what's the syntax of map is, it starts with the keyword map followed by the generic type, which is good to be maintained, which has two things. One is the data type of the key and data type of the value, and you give the name for that map, which will be assigned to the data. And all the map will be enclosed within the curly braces, all the list will be enclosed within the square bracket, and each element will be separated by the comma. The next is how can we access this element. Before that, let's print the book. If I click on run, the output will be whatever the element that we have stored, it will be printed in the console. The next thing is how can we access each element. So each element can be accessed using a square bracket with the name of it. That is nothing but book is the name of the map, right? Then each key value can be accessed using the name of the key. That is, if you want a title, I can just write a square bracket, and inside each square bracket you have to write the key, what is the name of the key. And if I try to run, so what will be the output? Will get an output that is related to the C. If I try to if I try to print the key value, it will give the corresponding value to it. I think you guys got to know how do we access the element. Okay, let's say if you want to change the title, let's say from title Stranger Things, you have to change it to the Doctor Strange, the one more series, just change that name. How can I change that name? I can just use the same thing using the same method. What I can do, I'll just come here, I'll show you again how can I do. I'll just write book, and we want to change what? We want to change a title from Stranger Things to Doctor Strange. From Stranger Things to Doctor Strange. So let's make sure it is ended with the semicolon. Okay, and also let's try to print the book title now, and we'll see what will be the data. Okay, if I try to run this, so what did I do? First I have accessed the element. You guys got to know how to access the element. We just use the key name, the value, what is the key name that you have given, we'll just use that inside the square bracket. It's just you are going to access each element. The second thing is, if you want to change the element name, by the same way or the method, you just assign that to the name you want to change, and the output is Doctor Strange. See here, instead of this title, we'll just write book, and we'll get to conclusion what it has changed. If you could observe in the list also, the overall list can manipulate it. The initial list and the end list is completely different. See, the initial list is Stranger Things. Now we have completely changed that title to Doctor Strange. This is how you change the data in the map. And I also told we can also get only the key or only the value from this. Let's say if you want only the value, I can just write values, and if I try to run this program, just remove this method values. If I try to run this program, I'll get only values. What is the value? That is Stranger Things and the 5. These are the values. And we can also get only keys, that is by writing books dot keys. And if I try to run, what will be the output? The values will be Stranger Things and 5, and the the keys will be title and season. See, as the output is expected, we got an output. And we saw this thing in the map, where if you use the map method on the list, that is different, that is for looping. Okay, usually data will be enclosed within this parenthesis, that is a iterable thing. which is by iterable it is getting. If I want to convert this into the array, what I can do, I can just use one more method called, I'll just enclose with the parenthesis, and I'll use a method called toList. The moment when I do this, and if I try to run the program, what will be happen, the all keys what is there, it will be converted or changed into the array. See, it is all the list of the keys are being stored in the array. This is how you convert the normal values that you get from the map to the list. Okay, here also in the map also you can perform the loop methods. So what are the loop method we learned? We already learned about the for loop, for each loop, and map and all. Similarly, you can perform the all these methods like a for each on the map also. Example, let's start with the for. So for, and we want a map entry, map entry. Let's give a variable to it n, in where, which is the, what is the name of this, what is the name, that is book. So let's write book dot entries, and let's try to print the key and the value, both will try to print. So what did we basically do? If you could remember in list, what did we do? For, and we have initialized some variable, and that variable is initialized inside the list, right? Here whenever you want to use a for loop, we'll have a map entry, and this map entry is just suggesting that it is going inside the each map or like object, and we are taking n element. We are just whatever the elements are there, it's been taken in where, in the book dot entries. All these are called as book dot entries. Okay, and you are trying to print the output, each loop, each element. If I try to print this, see, each map entry will have a title and it will have a seasons. Clear? So this is the for loop on the map, and we can also perform the for each loop. For each, and for each, as I told, it takes the callback function, right? It takes the callback function. It will have two things. As I told, it's a map. It will have a key and it will have a map. It will have a value. It has two things to return, whereas in map it is only one element, and it should return what? Let's print k and also v. Let's print the both thing and the statement, and also in what we have to perform this for each. For each have to be performed on the book. So we have to write book dot for each. I think you are clear about it, right? So let's I think it have to be like 1. Let's print it. If you want to create a mode, just make sure you just wrap the whole thing in the string, like string interpolation, that's all. So when I run this, you'll get an output that is first for loop and also second for each loop. See, we got an output here which is not identified. We can just write like for each, and I can write interpolation, that is a $sign with k and $sign with v, and we can run the program. As expected, we got an output that is season and the 5. The output for the each thing. So you can loop in the in the map also. Map is like a object that you could see in the other, or dictionary in the other languages. So that's all for the today's video. We learned about list and the map and how can we loop through it. In the next videos we will learn about class, constructor and interfaces.